If you're listening to this, it's highly likely that you've been dabbling in herbal medicine for quite a while. Maybe you've made the elderberry syrup, the fire cider, some killer salves, or even a great sleepy time tea. And now your friends, your family, your coworkers, they're all coming to you asking for help with colds and flu, with their rashes, anxiety, and even some deeper stuff. And you want to help. You know you can with the basics. But deep down, you might be wondering, do I really know what I'm doing here? What if I suggest the wrong thing? If that sounds familiar to you, it might be time for you to take the next step on your herbalist path, to start feeling confident in the herbs that you recommend, to understand how the herbs actually work in the body, to support deeper healing and help others get to the root cause of their health issues. Do that safely and effectively. It might be your time to become the community herbalist that your people already see in you. If you're feeling that call, I'd love to invite you to reach out. Let's have a chat and see if the Community Herbalist Certification Program is the right next step for you. I would be so honored to be a guide on your herbalist path. All right, I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the Herbalist Path, a podcast that's all about helping herbalism spread like wildflowers. I'm Mel, a clinical herbalist, environmental educator, and a mama who's been walking this path for well over 20 years. I created this show to help you feel confident with herbal medicine. You're going to get a blend of how-to episodes, incredible guest experts sharing their wisdom, and real talk about using herbs every day. All to help you care for your family naturally, take better care of our precious planet, and maybe even become the trusted herbalist in your own community. You see, this work isn't just about the herbs. It's about healing ourselves. It's about caring for each other, and it's about living in deeper connection with the earth. So whether you're blending your first tea, making your first tincture, or feeling called to be the go-to herbalist in your community, welcome. You belong here. You are right on time, and you are on the herbalist path. Hello, and welcome back to another episode on the Herbalist Path. And I am so excited for what's to come of today's talk. I don't know exactly what we're going to talk about, but I got a hunch. We're going to talk about the gut and digestive health and the importance of a healthy microbiome, because today's guest is a guest I've wanted on my show for a couple of years now, and it's Dr. Nikki DiNezza, and she is the gut microbiome queen. She's super fun. If you're not already watching her on Instagram or on YouTube after the show, you're probably going to want to. And we've connected in the online space for quite a while, and I love the way she shares information with people about the importance of checking in with what's going on in the gut, because it ultimately leads to the healing of all the other inflammatory diseases and conditions that the body has. So Nikki, Dr. DiNezza, and the gut microbiome queen, I am so happy to have you here. Welcome.
Happy to be here. I'm glad that we finally made this work.
Me
2
too.
or 3 years in the making, but we finally did it.
I know. It's interesting how many other things can get in the way, or, maybe it's not getting in the way. It's just part of the path, part of the journey.
Yeah, the human process.
Exactly. So right before we actually hit record on this show, you were chatting and you were like, I don't know if I call myself an herbalist yet, but you're a doctor of chiropractic, you are a nutritional therapy practitioner, and you use herbs. So I do
indeed use herbs.
I think you qualify if you want to have that. So
I feel like I oscillate back and forth between calling myself an herb enthusiast versus an herbalist. And I feel like part of the hang up in my brain is that I feel like in order to officially call myself an herbalist, I would need to do like the American Herbalist Guild, registered herbalist, whatever thing. And I have a little spreadsheet. I've been tracking hours every time I go to seminars or take a course or whatever. I have a little spreadsheet, but I feel like I will feel official once I kind of like get some sort of official accolade under my belt. But it is silly, right? Because I used herbs and so many people have used herbs for thousands upon thousands of years. And there was no official accolade or title or certification for many, many, many years. So it feels a little bit silly, but I think that's where my brain is at with it.
I think, and I hear you in like feeling that it's silly. And I think this is something that people come across all the time. I know it's a discussion I've had with many other herbalists out there that have gone through the ladder of like climbing up to that level. And also those that are the home herbalists that are using herbs to heal their family. Like that is also a level of herbalist. Are you a clinical herbalist at that level? Probably not so much, right? But yeah, I think there's a wide range of angles of officially becoming an herbalist. And when I hear that you're a doctor of chiropractic, right? And you specialize in the gut microbiome and helping people heal things and deal with SIBO and leaky gut and all of those kinds of things, I can't help but be incredibly curious how a doctor of chiropractic got into the world of herbs and healing the gut.
Yeah, tangentially, right next door to the spine, I suppose, but very different things that you would deal with. Okay, so can I launch into the story then?
Do it.
Are you volunteering for the story?
Yeah, right. Bring me stories.
Okay, so and it's going to start at the beginning. That's the only place the story can start.
Yeah.
So I had chronic low back pain for 5 years in my late teens and early 20s. I think I was about 19 when it started, and it persisted for 5 years. I was a rower at the time, and I kind of convinced myself, oh, rowing is one of those sports that's really hard on your back. And I have a lot of teammates who have injured their back. So I just must be one of them. I must be one of the ones that the sport of rowing claimed. And now I have a bad back. But I tried, physical therapy. I stretched, I strengthened. My bachelor's degrees in exercise science. Like I used to be a personal trainer, for crying out loud. So like I know how to strengthen my glutes and strengthen my core and do all of that jazz. And no amount of that ever helped. And finally, I'm like 22 or whatever it was. And I was like, all right, I've had chronic back pain for 4 years. This is kind of enough. So I decided to go to chiropractic school to figure out my own back. Amongst other things. I thought that it sounded like a cool career path, especially when I found out that you could do like some of the exercises and sort of PT stuff with the manipulation. Mm-hmm. So I went to chiro school mostly to fix my own back. And in the first year or so, I tried a bunch of different chiropractic techniques. I got acupuncture. I, again, tried yoga again. Nothing was budging. It was still this chronic right SI joint pain that persisted. I had them do an X-ray at one point because I thought, okay, wait, I had a really bad case of Lyme disease when I was 14. Is this like a Lyme arthritis kind of situation years down the road? Nope, looked clean. However, I was and am a seminar addict. Mm-hmm. It's not the worst addiction you could have, but I worked a part-time job as a personal trainer and another one as a tutor purely so I could fund my seminar and conference habit. And I was going to everything, right? Like in the beginning, I went to seminars about orthotics and nutrition and eventually functional medicine. And that was the first thing that really called my name in school. Like the rest of school was fine, but I was never super passionate about the adjustment side of chiropractic, ironically enough. But sitting down and hearing Datis Karazian talk about the thyroid for 2 hours, I went into it and I was like, this is going to be boring AF. It's one little piddly gland right here. Like, how can he fill 2 hours of talking time with the thyroid? This is dumb. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. And he told the story, which is typically his story of like, the person with Hashimoto's. They get told they're hypothyroid, they're put on levothyroxine or Synthroid. their TSH is now normal, but they still feel like dog shit. And their doctor's like, don't know what to tell you. Your TSH is good. So you're good. Goodbye. See you later.
Numbers are okay.
Yeah, your labs are fine. Therefore, you're fine. And I don't know what to do with you. And as he's talking about this in the seminar, it sounded exactly like my mom.
Mm.
And I had this holy shit moment of, whoa, I think my mom has Hashimoto's and nobody ever told her. Her whole side of the family is riddled with autoimmune disease. It just clicked and it made sense. So I went home and called my mom. I was like, Ma, you're going gluten-free. And, we went on this whole thing together. And then in the process of that, I started really diving deep into functional medicine and spending all my free time at those seminars and conferences and reading the books and all of that. And I started playing around with elimination diets and supplements and detoxes and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I figured out, oh, my body super duper doesn't like gluten or dairy. Oh, and by the way, I have the celiac antibodies. So I joke that I'm probably a celiac. I had the blood antibodies. I just never proceeded with the endoscopy because at that point I was like, why bother? Now I have a different opinion, but at the time I thought, why bother? I'm not going to eat the stuff anyway, whatever. I'm just going to go gluten-free. And it was going gluten-free and healing my gut that actually got rid of the low back pain. And I didn't realize it for a while until I got glutenated for the first time about a month or two later. And then the back pain came roaring right back. And it was like this old friend came to haunt me. And I was like, whoa, I didn't even realize you were gone, but now you're, whoa. And so I think that was sort of the start of it. So started kind of working on my gut health, went through a bit of an IBS-D kind of journey myself, really severe bloating, diarrhea, food intolerances out the wazoo. I joke, I did AIP before it was cool. I did AIP before it was AIP. Right? Because I don't think it was coined yet at that point, but anything even potentially remotely inflammatory was hacked out of my diet. And now cut to 2025 and my diet is nice and diverse and broad. I can eat everything except gluten. My gut is fine, like no bloating, no diarrhea, no problems with my tummy. And now I help other people kind of figure out their gut and heal too. So
I love that story and the journey of it and how quickly you saw the return of the back pain when you got gluten. Like, it is
bizarre,
amazing and insane how directly correlated that is. And you don't realize it until you do take the time to heal the gut. And I think that's really incredibly powerful.
It was wild.
Yeah.
And, nobody ever wants to get exposed to a food that they're sensitive to. And I'm sure I was in a lot of misery that particular night. But I'm glad that happened because that was the wake up call for me of like, ooh, yeah, light bulb. This is the thing that got rid of very low back pain. And over the years, I've observed the same thing. Like if I accidentally get glutenated at a restaurant or eating something because I'm not super careful, the back pain will come back to this day. And it's the damnedest thing.
Yeah, I think that's really important that you mentioned that. Like it really brings to the fact of how we really need to listen to our bodies. And we tend to forget to do that in our society. And I was just breaking this down to my community herbalist students as we're doing a little bit of gut healing protocol in there. And I'm like, it's not going to be the same for anybody in here. And it's important for you to check in with your body, listen to your gut. Now is the time to feel that intuition. You probably know already what foods you're sensitive to or intolerant to, but you've been eating them all your life. So you're like, I'm fine. I've eaten gluten all my life. I'm good to go. Right? Yeah. So,
or you have the quintessential, like lactose intolerance is a great example of this. People who fully know that they are lactose intolerant and they know what the consequences are, but they eat the ice cream anyway.
Oh yeah.
And look, like my purpose is not to be here to judge. Like ice cream is delicious. I'm not going to judge that. But, sometimes there are situations like that where people kind of know, my body super doesn't like gluten or corn or whatever it might be, but they kind of eat it anyway. And there's probably a whole battery of psychology we could get into of like why we do that to ourselves sometimes. But But that's probably a topic for another day.
Including those little bad gut bugs that are like, hey, eat more of it. I need more of that sugar. I need more of that stuff. And triggering those psychological feelings of like, oh, I need that pint of ice cream right now.
I sort of wonder how much of that goes on. Like that's an emerging area with microbiome research that I'm interested to watch, is the idea that the critters in our gut can actually make us have cravings and manipulate that. And I know I have seen people who seem to have candida overgrowth or like a yeast overgrowth in their gut, and they're craving sugar a lot at like an atypical amount of sugar cravings. And then we get them on something for candida, and then those sugar cravings get substantially better. Like I have seen that numerous times. I'm not saying it's across the board. Sometimes you just crave sugar because you've been eating too much sugar and your brain has gotten used to that and your taste buds have kind of calibrated to that level of sweetness in your diet. But yeah, sometimes it might be the bugs. It's interesting, spooky stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely something I've observed. I've also observed like ditch the sugar all the way for 3 days. And like that chemical reaction that's happening, that craving starts to go away. Have you seen that with the patients? And you get to say patients because you're a doctor. I don't get to say but
we could call it whatever. Yeah, I've seen that. I think, it's funny. My husband is actually gearing up to do a variation of keto right now. And he's one of the most sugar addicted human beings I've ever met in my lifetime. I love him dearly, but my God. And, it's interesting watching him do this. I never would have thought in a million gazillion years that he would give up sugar, but I'm super proud of him for doing this. But yeah, it's fascinating how quickly your taste buds rewire, and then you bite into an apple and you're like, whoa, this is really sweet. Like you don't need the Smarties or the Sour Patch Kids or the whatever. Fruit is sweet.
With natural sugars that don't, feel so horrible in the body all the time.
Well, and I will say too, I want to stop. I don't want to come across as this like nutrition Nazi person in this episode. Right. I'm not the person who's like, you have to adhere strictly to this diet forever and ever. And if you ever eat sugar, it's the devil and you're not going to be healthy. I just had ice cream 2 days ago. And I am a chocoholic, but chocolate has magnesium and polyphenols, so it's a health food. Damn it. I stand by that opinion.
But good chocolate.
I eat dark chocolate pretty regularly. I'm not like anti-sugar, anti-processed foods, period. It's just, is that stuff making up a majority or a minority of your diet? And there seems to be sort of a magic number for ultra processed foods, actually, which is basically like what we would call processed foods. If ultra processed foods make up 20% or more of your calories, then that's kind of the threshold where it seems to do a lot of damage to your health, and it increases your risk for, heart disease, cancer, inflammatory chronic conditions. But you can eat ultra processed food in moderation and keep it, 10% of your diet. And it's not, at least for the data we have right now, it's not going to negatively impact your lifespan or make you more prone to any particular disease. But again, like a lot of people don't consume whole foods 90% of the time, and then the snickerdoodles or the Pop-Tarts 10% of the time. Usually those numbers are pretty flipped in our society.
Absolutely. And I love that you're like, hey, I'm not the food Nazi or the diet Nazi. And you really can't be, because we also know that so much of our emotions are stored in our gut. And when we feel that feeling of stress and anxiety over like guilt and shame of like, oh my gosh, I'm eating this ice cream. I am so bad. I'm so off my diet. That directly contributes to your digestive system not being able to do its job right. So, if you're going to eat the Ben and Jerry's, love it.
Just enjoy the damn thing.
Yeah.
Well, and I think also we should mention the vagus nerve in this part of the conversation too. Your gut doesn't do much of anything all on its own. Your gut is obeying the gut-brain axis, namely the vagus nerve. And it's that long vagus nerve that's telling your stomach to produce stomach acid. It's telling your gallbladder to release bile. It's telling your, esophagus to contract. It's telling your colon to contract. It's running your motility in the small intestine and elsewhere for that matter. So, it's the vagus nerve is rest and digest. And it's also really connected to feelings of safety and connection and love and like oxytocin and just like all of the feel-good chemicals basically feed into these vagal pathways. And so if you are shaming yourself or berating yourself for eating that treat, you're not allowing yourself to get into rest and digest. You're shutting down your vagus nerve. And then guess what? You're not going to digest it very well. And then you're going to get symptoms. And then you're going to double down next time you eat that ice cream. And you're going to be really shaming yourself because, oh, I knew I got bloated last time and I'm still eating it now. What a dummy I am. And it could snowball. But the vagus nerve is really a piece of that too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a great breakdown of that, and I really appreciate it. And I also want to talk on another thing you were talking about there in how when you first started getting into this, you had to eliminate the gluten and the dairy and all of the things it seemed. But now you have this very diverse diet because you took the time to thoroughly heal the gut. So I'd love to just hear a little bit about like, hey, sure, you eliminate some things for a bit of time to figure out what's going on and to do the healing process. But then the sunshine comes out again,
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to throw my profession under the bus slightly with this. And I'm going to state right out the gate that I think part of the problem that people kind of get into this with is that there is a lot of disordered eating and a lot of orthorexia in the field of functional medicine, naturopathic medicine, etc. Honest to God, when I go to conferences and stuff now and kind of knowing what I know and working the way I do, I think that the vast majority of those people have disordered eating themselves and orthorexia and like obsession with health. And it's really easy to imprint that on your patients and try to make them see the world the same way that you see it, like food bad, gluten bad, glutamine good. And so I think that's part of it is like a lot of functional providers haven't kind of dealt with their own shit or they haven't acknowledged that their shit is shit.
Right.
But yeah, you also see a lot, naturopaths in particular, I've seen a lot of people get food sensitivity tests and then those results are taken as gospel. Like, oh, these are the 30 foods that you not only can you not eat, which we do not know at that stage of the game, but B, you can never eat them again. This is your forever no list. And I'm so sick of seeing this because then what happens, and actually funny enough, my Instagram reel today is talking about this. You narrow down your diet, you narrow the base of support for your microbiome, essentially. Your microbiome becomes less healthy and less diverse. And now you're not making as many of those good anti-inflammatory, immune educating chemicals with the microbiome. So you start to get a reduction in like short chain fatty acid production, butyrate production, whatever. And now you're taking away signals from your immune system that would normally tell your immune system, hey, tolerate this. It's cool. You don't have to freak out at every food you see because we eat a lot of different foods. Look, we ate 30 different foods just this week alone. Remember them, remember to tolerate them. So as we constrict our diet, we constrict our microbiome, and then we are giving more inflammatory, less tolerogenic signals to the immune system. And then what happens? So the person cuts out those 30 no-no foods, and maybe they feel better for a while, maybe they don't, who knows? Then maybe a few months or even a year later, they go back to the naturopath or maybe a different naturopath and they say, man, I really feel like crap, doc. Maybe we need to do another food sensitivity test. Well, now there's 15 new foods on that test that they can apparently never, ever eat again. And then they lose more immune tolerance. And eventually they lose tolerance to more of the foods that they're eating. And I've seen people go through this journey where they get numerous food sensitivity tests or numerous run-throughs with an elimination diet. And they keep finding trigger foods every step of the way. And it's like, yeah, because your immune system is losing tolerance and what you're doing is one of the chief cause of that loss of tolerance. So it could be a tricky journey to get people back up to eating a normal diet when they've whittled their diet down to literally 8 or 10 foods. Or heaven forbid, less than that. The carnivore diet is super popular right now. And these people are just eating steak, eggs, and butter, and maybe cheese. I don't even like 4 foods, none of which contain fiber or carbohydrate.
Or inulin anywhere. Like,
no, not a scrap of butyrate being produced, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, taking somebody from that kind of diet and then helping them eat all of the high FODMAP foods behind me in particular, it can be pretty challenging, but that's sort of the world that I've accidentally landed myself in. Good thing I'm good at helping those people.
Yeah, you definitely are. And as you were talking about the diversity and things, and I'm like looking at the background of your recording area, and you've always got it in your Instagram reels and things, and it's just beautiful and colorful and diverse, and it's a rainbow. And I think it very directly speaks to everything that we're talking about and that you're speaking about. And I love it. So thank you. And I want to backtrack, or not even backtrack. I want to start nerding out on herbs a bit with you. And when I say backtrack, I want to hear a little bit again about your core story of getting into the world of herbal medicine and how and then we can like start talking about how you incorporate herbs into what you do.
Yeah. Ooh, another fun story. Okay. So like I said, so my kind of path was chiropractic initially. Then I got into functional medicine and nutrition sort of at the same time. And then later I got into herbs properly. So what I mean by that is, and I don't know how much experience you have with like the functional medicine space, just in general, or seeing those people yourself, but they use herbs, but in a very allopathic, dare I say, bastardized sense.
I agree.
And so, I got into this world and I started using, just berberine in a capsule, and you never taste the bitterness. You don't even know what plant that berberine came from, or proprietary formulas. And it was literally like some dude, like Datis Karazian or whoever, was on PubMed late one night, went on a bender, found every single herb and supplement and vitamin that could ever stimulate serotonin production ever. And then they just crammed all of those things into one pill. And they're like, here, this is your serotonin active, right? And so that was the world of herbal medicine that I was most familiar with. And, it's like, I loved functional medicine in the beginning. Again, it made my mom's story make sense. It helped me heal something that had plagued me for years. Like I'm grateful to the functional medicine world, but the longer I was in it, the more disenchanted I became with it, because I started having this feeling of like, they say that we treat the individual and we don't treat the disease. And that's kind of true, right? Like you could have 10 rheumatoid arthritis patients go into 10 different integrative functional practitioner offices, and they will get 10 different treatments. But when you're talking about the world of functional diagnoses, then you start getting away from that. So you could have 10 different people diagnosed with leaky gut by that one practitioner. And I guarantee you, I'll bet you $5 on it now, each individual practitioner has their go-to leaky gut formula, their go-to Candida formula, their go-to SIBO antimicrobial, their go-to prokinetic, their go-to adrenal formula. So it's like they treat the person and they don't treat the disease, as long as you're talking about the conventional medicine, allopathic diseases. But when you get into the labels or the diagnoses in the functional space, everybody is treated the damn same, and it drives me bonkers. And then I would see people in forums, like practitioners and doctors and shit in the forums, and they'll literally go in there every day, like all the time. And they'll go in there and be like, what's your favorite SIBO protocol? What's your Candida protocol? What's your fibro protocol? What's your favorite supplement for leaky gut? And it's just a numbers game. Whatever one gets mentioned the most wins. And now that's the one that they're going to order on full script for all of their patients from now until kingdom come. So I had the whisperings of this and like the discomfort with functional medicine for some time. And then I went to my cherry popping of herbal medicine. And I went to Medicines from the Earth my daughter was really young. So my guess is that it was either 2016 or 2017. I went to Medicines from the Earth. And that was just the biggest aha, not only light bulbs, like the angels were singing and the clouds parted ways and they just illuminated Black Mountain, North Carolina. It was amazing. And these people were so freaking smart. And they were referencing research and articles and like wisdom that I couldn't even fathom. But they were also talking about, oh, hey, you have somebody who comes in with migraines. Well, there's a ton of different flavors of migraines and like presentations. Are they hot? Are they cold? Are they phlegmy? Are they whatever? And here's where you would use the different herbs. So I remember, David Winston talking about all of the various flavors of depression, and how you might use herbs differently. Like this group might respond really well to St. John's wort, and this group maybe would respond better to, I don't know. I'm getting carried away, but my point is, I found my tribe finally. And I found the people who are actually treating people as individuals rather than treating the diagnoses and getting lost in the diagnoses. And so I was hooked from that point on. And honestly, I feel like I've just flipped. I really don't go to functional medicine seminars at all anymore. Maybe like one a year, just because I like the organization here in North Carolina. But I spend my time and my education money buying herb books or going to conferences like Medicines from the Earth, or I've been to some of the American Herbalist Guild ones when they're close enough that I could kind of justify driving to it. But yeah, I feel like I found my tribe. So that's, yeah.
I love that story
ever since.
And clearly my heart is like, yes, this is beautiful. And hearing that differentiation, especially coming from a more allopathic background into the functional medicine background, and seeing that incredible connection and hearing like I found my tribe at an herb conference. Same thing happened to me when I went to my first official herb conference. And I remember like I had been dabbling in herbs and playing with things, and it was all really cool. And I went to a Brighton Bush herbal conference out here in Oregon and just went on a whim. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. I didn't even know that I could ever call myself an herbalist. I was just having fun with books and playing with herbs and things like that. And I went there. And
you were
like,
herb curious.
I mean, I had been herb curious for quite some time now that I reflect back, but I had officially just been like, okay, I'm going to this conference because it's right down the highway from me. And I just remember being there and like, wow, these are my people. These people are beautiful.
They
are
get
kind. They are caring. They love the earth. They love people, and they get it. And so that was like my like, all right, that's where I'm going. That's what I'm doing. Obviously,
I think too,
wavered.
Sorry to interrupt. I was going to say another plug for herbal medicine as it's practiced by herbalists rather than the functional medicine space is that I also, over the years, have gotten very frustrated with functional medicine. And again, it's like another layer of hypocrisy. And again, I still, a part of my heart will always belong to functional medicine. I don't mean this episode to be like totally shitting on them.
Yeah.
But you'll hear all sorts of natural practitioners, including functional medicine people, say that conventional medicine is broken and crooked, and they are getting, funded by the pharmaceutical industry, and pharmaceutical reps are going to go to your office and buy lunch for your staff just to get you to prescribe more Lipitor. And we're better than that. And I've got news for all of you. That shit happens in functional medicine just as much. It might not be every day that you and your staff get a free lunch, but I have had lab testing companies and supplement companies offer to host events in my office, or bring lunch, or do a lunch and learn, or schmooze with me, or give me free product, or give me a coupon code, or give me a free test to do on myself that they then can help walk me through the interpretation of. And then, maybe then I will want to order that test on patients. Like that shit does happen in functional medicine. And I think that's probably one of several reasons why a lot of those formulas are wicked expensive.
Mm-hmm.
You get like a 90 count bottle of Serotonin Active or whatever, functional formula you want to say. That could be a good $50, $60, $70. for one of those. Or like turmeric, heaven forbid you want a curcumin supplement. My God, you have to take out a mortgage on your damn house to buy the fancy schmancy, isolated, bioavailable, piperine extracted, emulsified, whatever, isolated curcumin that they're selling you now. And I remember two things. I feel like one of them was definitely David Winston. So I remember David Winston years ago at Medicines from the Earth, and he was saying that it's ludicrous that we're spending so much money on these curcumin products when turmeric tincture works phenomenally well. And he mentioned a study, it was in mice, I believe, where they basically took out all of the curcuminoids, right? All of the good stuff, right? They took all of the good stuff out of the turmeric and they put that in, I don't know if they fed it to the mice or they dumped it in their veins. I don't know what happened, but they gave that to the mice. And then the other group, they basically took all of the discarded junk that they did not think was medicinal, right? Everything but the curcuminoids. And they gave that to the other group of mice, and they were equally effective.
Amazing.
There's something else in turmeric other than curcumin. Who knew?
Who would ever think that a whole plant has many different things dancing together to
madness, I tell you. But that, it was just perfect. So I heard him say that. And I had a patient at the time who was, prior to even working with me, she was taking a curcumin supplement and it was helping with joint pain. Great. But it was like $88 a bottle for these, again, bioemulsified, mycelated, whatever, bioabsorbable special curcumin. So I remember I went back to my office. I still remember her name. I called her up and I was like, Bonnie, I have an idea. And I told her what I just told you. And I said, I will give you a bottle of turmeric tincture if you will be my guinea pig and give me feedback. I want you to stop the capsules that you're taking. Take this for a few weeks instead, and then you're going to report back. Are you cool with that? And she was like, yeah, sure. It worked just fine. And it was $25 instead of $88.
Exactly.
So, and now, I love nothing more than getting people to buy a big old bag of chamomile tea, bulk chamomile, and that's going to last them from now until doomsday. And maybe you don't need some fancy schmancy proprietary $60 a bottle blend. Maybe you just need one big hefty bag of tea.
Yeah. Amen. I mean, I might have to blast this episode out to the masses on like 20x volume instead of just 10x. So, yeah, absolutely genius. And the other piece, like just back on the turmeric, like tincture's rad, but like, eat the damn food.
Yeah, that too.
Food is your medicine.
And that might have been his point also. I forget now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was, knowing anything I've ever learned with David Winston. Like, I know he's very pro use your herbs as food and food as medicine. And, also with that turmeric, like you've got to get your fats. And if you bring in the black pepper, you're going to increase the bioavailability and all of that. Super cool stuff.
Again, we don't need to be spending $88 a bottle and have our people on subscriptions through FullScript or whatever, where that's just an indefinite part of their regimen. Like, I don't think that's the answer.
I mean, I'm definitely grateful for supplementation. There's definitely a time and a place. There are people that are like, no, I can't get myself to take a tincture every day. I despise the flavor of turmeric in my food, and so on and so forth.
Or if you're traveling, you might not want to bring a tincture in a glass bottle on an airplane. Maybe just bring the capsules for that trip.
Exactly. Or, oh gosh, brain fart. It's gone away. I had a
turmeric, capsules, curcumin, tinctures, airplanes. I don't know.
Right. Oh gosh, it's gone for the moment, but I'm sure it'll come back at some point.
If it was good, it'll come back.
Absolutely. Yeah. But
I guess my point was that is a very common, like, day-to-day visit to visit occurrence within functional medicine is that there's a heavy reliance and a degree of comfort with really expensive proprietary formulas. And it's like companies that you can only buy through your practitioner and you can't get them on Amazon and
standard process.
Which
I like. I like them, but they're,
So that's another one for another day. But it's just, it's weird. And So I had another story briefly. So the first one was definitely David Winston. I remember that lecture like it was yesterday, but there was another one. And I think that this one was Walter Crinnion. He was a naturopath and he used to chum around at the herbal medicine conferences. He went to Medicines from the Earth several years in a row when I was going. He has since passed away, unfortunately, but he was a pretty smart guy and he was a big deal in the detox world, especially. Mm-hmm. But I remember he was saying, and again, I think he was from the West Coast somewhere. I think he might have lived in Arizona, and that he was out in North Carolina for this event. And he was chuckling and he told us, he said, I love traveling for these work conferences. And he said, partially because one of my favorite hobbies is that I go into whatever health food store they have in the town, and I just stand there for hours seemingly, and I pick up the bottles on the shelf and I look at the formulas at the hippy dippy, market. And he said, I could always tell which companies have an herbalist on staff and which ones just have like a dude with PubMed just making a kitchen sink formula. And again, Tatis Karazian was my gateway drug into functional medicine. And I still think he's brilliant and fabulous. However, all of the formulas that Apex has, that's a really good example. You look at like their flagship adrenal product, for example. They've got uppers, they've got downers, they've got hot, they've got cold, they've got all of the things all just mishmashed into one because there's research proving that all of these things are good. So why the hell not just slap them all in a formula? And I just died laughing when he was talking about that hobby of his. And now I've kind of adopted it myself. It is a hoot.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I definitely find myself reading labels, but I hadn't thought of it in that way. Instead, I'm like, well, this is a great formula. And this is like, I refer to it as shotgun herbalism, like just throw all the things at it because I read an article that said all these herbs are good for the digestive system. Yeah. Sweet, there they go. But
I Googled which herbs are good for SIBO, and then I just put them all into one.
And now I have no fucking clue what's working for me. Yeah, because it is so individual. Yeah. I love this. I could ramble on this for decades. And in fact, I do. And I want to ramble on it more with you. Hopefully I can get you into our community herbalist program to teach our students in there some of your perspectives on gut microbiome healing. And I know that you have something pretty amazing coming up, and I want to hear a bit more about it. I want you to tell these people, because I'm sure by now they're like, oh my gosh, I want to do work with her and I want to heal my gut and feel great. And
so they could get more rambling stories.
Yeah. Who doesn't want rambling stories? I mean, they're listening to my show, Nikki, so.
Not touche. So maybe these are my people.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us more about what you got going on.
Yes. First, though, may I confess something? So we know some of the same people, at least loosely, like through the internet. Yes. I'm pretty sure you've spoken with Thomas Easley or know him.
Did a big old tour of Mountain Rose Herbs with him and Sean Donnell, the owner of Mountain Rose, and Mason from Herb Rally. And
so we had gotten to know each other through forums many years ago, but he's in my state. But then the thing that actually I wanted to bring up is that I feel like our brains probably would especially resonate with Jim McDonald.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. And I'm so excited. He's going to Medicines from the Earth this year. And I already messaged him, was like, I'm so excited to meet you. But the way that he teaches with, again, kind of the rambly stories and the tangents and the rabbit trails and like visual props. Like I did his Ladira class and it's phenomenal. Chef's kiss. Highly recommend. But like all of the weird ass examples and props and stories and metaphors and analogies that man uses, I'm just like, I think I found my kindred spirit in you. And like, I'm happily married. It's nothing like that, but like my herb kindred spirit, but something about the way that man talks and teaches herbalism just really scratches something in me. So as we were joking about our long-winded stories and tendencies, I just thought I would plug Jim McDonald as well.
I want to plug in there. Also, he's one of my first teachers. He's been on this show also.
I thought he had.
Yeah, a long time ago. And I had the pleasure of getting to learn with him when I was going through clinical studies. The guy who ran that program brought awesome herbalists in for the month. And so I had 2 different years where I got to have Jim teaching live and in the flesh. And He is so much fun. And since then, I've turned a few of my students onto him as well. So I love that you bring him up. He loves to talk about pool noodles and all kinds of great things. And he does a great job diving into like, what about herbal energetics and how do we really work with herbs and a person and their symptoms uniquely instead of that massive, super expensive $90 formula, right?
And I think I resonate with him too, because at the end of the day, he keeps it reasonably simple.
Yeah.
Right? Like
exactly. He takes complex, because herbalism is complex, very much so, but you can make it simple. And he does a great job of that. Yeah.
Well, and this will eventually segue into the point you were trying to make a moment ago, but I feel the same way about nutrition and just health in general. And I think we could kind of blame the human ego or maybe the frontal lobe in general for some of this, but there's this underpinning in a lot of nutrition, especially in the functional space, where people want to identify the bad food or the bad constituent in the food, right? So like, oh, it's the spinach is bad for you because of oxalates, or the wheat is bad for you because of the gluten or whatever, or, the peaches are bad for you because of the FODMAPs or whatever it might be. And that can help for a period of time as a Band-Aid to help mitigate symptoms, especially if somebody is really, really sick, right? Like if they're really compromised and they can't function, they can't live their life, by all means, you could use an elimination diet and help them kind of slowly reintroduce and bring in foods. But at the end of the day, we have so much good research to support the idea that Michael Pollan said years and years ago, eat food, not too much, mostly plants, right? Eat food, not hyper-processed food, not the Pop-Tarts and the Oreos and the Twinkies and the whatever else. Those can be there in moderation. Again, like maybe 10% of your total calories, but most of the time, eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And I would throw in one additional layer, which is if you can diversify, then that's going to be good for you nutritionally, right? Like there's a lot of vitamins and minerals that are necessary for human health. And if we can learn how to diversify our diet and eat some foods that contain iron, some foods that contain folate, some foods that contain fiber, some foods that contain protein, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, selenium, whatever it might be, there's a much higher likelihood that you will successfully meet your nutrient needs with your diet, and you won't need supplementation, or heaven forbid, you won't develop a disease from deficiency. And, it cracks me up sometimes because I feel like my job at the end of the day is helping people see the simplicity and helping people believe that it really can be that simple. Like, again, just eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And with healing, there's only so many things we really need to focus on with healing. Like everybody gets lost in the specific diagnoses. Oh, I have leaky gut. Oh, I have candida. I have SIBO. I have this. And I think that healing those conditions is 95% of the same. And then there's that little 5% where it's like, okay, well, if you have leaky gut, maybe you take some glutamine. And if you have candida, then yeah, maybe you take some caprylic acid. And if you have SIBO, maybe you take a prokinetic. There's that little wiggle room where we get really specific with the condition. But I would say 95% of what people need to do to heal almost any human ailment looks the same. But that is very unglamorous. I jokingly say it's unsexy. So our silly goose human brains tend to downplay the importance of those unsexy basics. And so, again, a big part of my job is just helping people understand the importance of those basic foundations and helping them implement them in their life.
Yeah. I love that so much, because when we can simplify it, it makes it easier for them to say, oh, that's why I'm doing this. And now it's possible because I understand it. My brain's not spinning down the rabbit hole trying to do all the research. I get why I'm doing it. And now it becomes so much easier to actually implement and integrate that into my life. So,
well, and like one sort of metaphor that I've used is a lot of people, at least that I work with, are actively trying to push themselves away from a particular diagnosis. Oftentimes, for me in my world, it's usually SIBO, Candida, or kind of dysbiosis more broadly. But there's something that they are struggling against, and they are actively trying to push away. You know, they're doing the low FODMAP diet because they were told erroneously that it treats SIBO. They're doing the Candida diet because they think that that's the answer for their Candida, whatever it might be. They're pushing. And their arm muscles are so tired because they've been pushing and bracing for years and years and years, and they're struggling and they can't push away the disease. And a lot of my work, I tell people, is if you can let go of that for like a split second, it's going to be terrifying AF. You've spent how many months or years of your life pushing against the scary thing? It's going to scare the willikers out of you. But if you could drop those arms and pivot for just a nanosecond, then you could start focusing on pulling yourself towards health. It's
Love
the
that.
same net result. You could push this direction or you could pull this direction. You're still ultimately trying to move the same direction toward the same goal, but it's a much different energy pulling yourself towards health and seeking health, as opposed to, oh God, I'm scared of SIBO. I need to push away from SIBO. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. The Klebsiella is eating. Different energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And more of that vagus nerve love when you're pulling the good to you instead of freaking out and
so
push
much
away.
better for the vagus nerve.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Beautiful.
And also, there's a lot of the stuff over here within the diagnosis, the condition, the physiology, the pathophysiology, the whatever, the biochemistry. There's a lot of this shit that we don't know yet. And that's part of the problem, is people will spend so much of their time doing a deep dive on PubMed or in Facebook groups and Reddit threads, and they're trying to research every little intricacy of Klebsiella because it showed up positive on one stool test one time, and they're convinced that that's what's wrong with them. Or they're trying to research the ever-loving crap out of this particular flavor of yeast overgrowth that the GI map told them that they have. And there's a lot of that stuff that we just don't know yet. Science isn't done. There are scientists doing science right now, and they haven't published their studies yet. They might not even come out this year. And there's going to be more scientists next year doing different research, and the cycle's going to persist for our whole lives. So it's also like, you can never know enough to successfully shove yourself away from the disease, at least in my opinion. But we know an awful lot about, and we have a lot of good large scale data to support what goes into making a human being healthy. That we actually know quite a bit about. So again, if you could drop your arms and pivot for just a second and deal with the terror of that experience, you can pull yourself towards health with a great deal of success. And that's what I teach people all the time. And that's what I try to emphasize in my work.
I love that. That is so beautiful. So well said. Like that energy shift. You're almost guaranteed success. I'm not going to say it's always guaranteed, right? But significantly more so, your odds are what, 80, 90% better when you're
I think so.
The good towards you instead of that out mode.
That's been my experience with it. Yes. Yeah. And actually, funny enough, to segue way back again, you had asked about my program coming up.
Yeah.
And in April, we're going to be opening again. I actually do have a 100% money back guarantee on that program.
Yeah.
Which I've never heard of anybody else doing that in this space or even in the like functional medicine naturopathic space, but it works so well. And my team and I are so good at identifying the people that we know we can help.
Yeah.
That I guarantee my work. Like, sure, there's going to be some people, maybe there's some extenuating circumstances that we don't gather from you when we first meet you and kind of assess like if we're a good fit. But if we approve you to join our program, I guarantee that I can help you. And if I don't, if your gut health is not radically transformed after working with me, I will just cut you a check or a Venmo or a PayPal and give you your money back. So
heck yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That's huge in this world, right? Because obviously you're teaching them and you're doing incredible work and you're showing them the way, but really it's them that has to do the work. But I love that you're kind of checking in with them. Which is tricky. Right.
Which is tricky, honestly, because there's always this wild card for me as a business owner, like putting that hat on, is that I was just telling my nutritionist who works for me not more than a week ago that it's hard because there are people where I don't think that my program failed them. I don't think it's that my program didn't work, but they did not implement something or they did not So for example, we have somebody who she has not requested a refund. I don't even know if she will, but she came in a vegetarian or vegan. And there was a lot of discussion of like, but your iron has been low for a long time. And that's important for gut health. And what about B12 and zinc and these other nutrients that are much easier to get through animal protein? And like, would you be open-minded to bringing in a little bit of animal protein or maybe like a heme-based iron supplement at least, because we really need to get your iron up? And she kind of was like a little bit open-minded, but then she'll just throw in there kind of at random that like forks over knives was a huge eye-opener for her. And we're like, like, I don't know if you're super getting the vibe here. And then just recently on one of the calls, she was kind of backsliding, it seemed, and basically expressing that she wants to go back to a plant-based eating style. And I'm like, ooh, that's going to be hard because I don't know if I can realistically guarantee results if somebody's not willing to implement some of the stuff that I say. But if she asked for a refund, I would still give her a refund because like, there's going to be some percentage of people that I can lead the horse to the water repeatedly and they're just not going to drink. And I have to kind of eat that as a business owner. And that's part of what goes into making a guarantee like that. It is what it is. Absolutely. But for the people who are going to do the work, who are open-minded, who are coachable, and who can get the transformation of a lifetime, I want to have that safety net in place for them so that they can feel confident doing my program and they know that it's the right decision for them. So
I love that. It's
still worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me more about your program, FODMAP Freedom, coming up.
Yeah. Well, I'll start by saying you don't have to be on a low FODMAP diet or even considering a low FODMAP diet to join. I just thought it was a cute name. I'm a sucker for alliteration. I thought that was fun when I named it. And honestly, a lot of the people working primarily in the IBS and SIBO world, a lot of the people I work with do come on with a low FODMAP diet or some variation of a quote unquote SIBO diet. So it makes sense for my people, but I've had plenty of people who don't do that diet when they join. And I, for the record, am not the person to recommend that diet typically. So you can breathe a sigh of relief. But yeah, it's kind of intense. It's very educational. I joke pretty frequently that we don't get a user's manual with the human body when we're born. And wouldn't it be nice if we had? And I lead you through the 12-week program. I feel like it's my duty to give you that user's manual and understand how the body works, what it needs to really thrive and be healthy and heal and build new healthy tissues and a new healthy microbiome. And we support you along the way. So it's 12 weeks. So there's a like learning, kind of component with either video or audio lectures that you would listen to on your own time. So the style is called a flipped classroom. I don't know if you've heard that before, but you listen to the lecture content on your own time during the week. And then once a week, we get together for the live Q&As and we'll help you chew on it metaphorically, maybe and literally too. And then help you kind of figure out how to apply it in your day-to-day life. And so we go through that. And then the cycle repeats. We have another module that drops with more content. You watch that at your own pace. And then at the end of the week, we get together for the Q&As. So I have a nutritionist who works for me and she does 2 Q&As herself. And then I host 2 Q&As per week also. So we have 4 Q&As total each week. And it's the cycle of like, you learn something, then you chew on it together. You learn something, you chew on it together. And I've been told that I could probably get college credit for the course if I applied it that way for some sort of accreditation. So it is quite a lot of learning. If you are not a dork and if you don't have a good sense of humor, it's probably not the right thing for you. I have, I think like 300 GIFs and memes embedded in FODMAP Freedom at various places. I'm a sucker for a good GIF. But yeah, and then, we take you through the steps of healing your gut and nutrition and how to diversify your diet, how to make sure that you're getting all of the nutrients you need from your diet. We talk a lot about having a good relationship with your food and how to deal with food fear and how to reintroduce things successfully and like finding a pace that works for you with that. I do use herbs and supplements and I recommend some throughout the program, but I try not to be too heavy on that out of respect for people's pocketbooks. But I actually, one of the things I really like in, again, the IBS kind of SIBO space, with a lot of folks having pooping problems or bloating as a primary chief complaint, I love herbal prokinetics, and I will preach them until the end of times. But basically, it's a lot of bile moving herbs if you just look at the formulas. But
Right.
I actually package up little 1 week tester supply baggies of all of the herbal prokinetic formulas I've ever found. And I backy them up and slap a label on them. And I mail them to every single student at the beginning of the program, along with some like HCl and some other goodies. So part of the process too is that I kind of make people become citizen scientists and learn how to experiment on themselves and like figure things out in a curious kind of scientific way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I always say it's like playing detective. That's what I do as an herbalist. Like I am a detective, and we've got to figure out, we got to work together to figure out what the problem is and what's going to fix the problem. And yeah.
Well, and this is sometimes hard to understand when you're in the throes of something that's really frightening or painful, but even a bad reaction is data if you see it that way.
Absolutely.
So if you eat something and you get diarrhea from it, like a lot of people understandably would be very distraught and very freaked out by that. And that would, they would spiral kind of mentally and physically because of that. Or you could approach that with some curiosity and say, what is it about the peach that set me off? And maybe you could learn a little bit more about like the types of prebiotic that are in the peach and like what might have happened there. Or maybe it wasn't the peach at all. Maybe it was something else that happened during your day. Maybe you had a super stressful meeting with your boss right before lunch, and then you ate that poor innocent peach, and then you wagged a finger at the peach, and it wasn't the peach at all. It was the damn boss that gave you diarrhea. So, but again, like, you can't figure it out if you don't even acknowledge the presence of these data points in your life. So I think understanding that good reactions, bad reactions, and a seemingly lack of response to something, those are all just data points. And if you can approach this journey with a more scientific viewpoint, I think that not only takes away a lot of the stress and the fight or flight from the situation, but also, and it works better. But yeah, it's a more enjoyable experience.
Yeah, I love that. It's a great way to put it all together, and how to, I always call them learning lessons, if there's a bad reaction, great. What did we learn from that? Like, cool. There's something to take away from that. So this sounds amazing. Can you just take a minute and tell me some of the results your people have had after going through FODMAP Freedom with you?
Yeah. Well, again, I tend to attract a very particular flavor of tummy problems. So the most common things that we'll see is that people are able to diversify their diets. So people who had been stuck on a low FODMAP diet or a low histamine diet or whatever, they've been able to reintroduce food successfully without a negative reaction or consequence. So that's a big one. Bloating is a very common chief complaint, and we see a lot of people get tremendous benefit with bloating. Pooping problems of all varieties, whether it be constipation, diarrhea, or mixed IBS presentation. We see a normalization in bowel movements quite often. And it's not uncommon for us to see improvement in other stuff too. Like we've had people with histamine sort of symptoms that get better as a consequence of going through this process and healing their gut. We've seen people, who used to have headaches, and then the headaches seem to get better, or whatever it might be. I will say, as a side note, though, because I have to be, I guess, like mindful of my place in the world and my scope and my zone of genius, my guarantee applies to tummy symptoms. So, unfortunately, if you come in with eczema or migraines and you're hoping to heal that by way of healing your gut, you're welcome to try. It's just, I can't guarantee that that's going to be the case. So, but again, if you have pooping problems, bloating, indigestion, a million gazillion food sensitivities that give you the runs, that's the kind of stuff I can guarantee my work on. But, I'm not an expert in eczema. I'm not an expert in migraine. Like, I have to be realistic with what I can guarantee my work on. But I fear that I tangented off a bit, though.
No, I love it. I think you really shared what an awesome program Freedom is, and the importance of people knowing that it doesn't mean that you have to go on the FODMAP diet, right?
No, it's the opposite.
Yeah,
I get excited when people can eat gluten again, even though I can't personally.
Right.
Like I've come full circle in that regard. I no longer think that gluten is the evil bane of all of our existence. I think
it's not. But you can't get taught that right in the beginning. Like gluten is the enemy for everybody.
Oh,
maybe it's the enemy for my body.
Gut.
Right. Yeah.
Thanks, Fasano.
Yeah. Anyways, I would love to hear how people can get access to you and how they can get access to FODMAP Freedom. And of course, I'll be linking to all the things in the show notes. But I think this is going to be really helpful for so many people listening here.
Certainly. So I am mostly going to be found on YouTube, Instagram, and my podcast as far as like free content, get to know me, learn from me kind of stuff goes. On YouTube and Instagram, I go by the handle Gut Microbiome Queen. If you just type that in as is on YouTube, it'll pop right up. If you type in on Instagram, it's gut.microbiome.queen. But I think if you search for it, it'll pop up anyway. And then I have a podcast of my own, and I'm super excited to have you on, and we could talk about herbs for digestion. I think that's going to be really, really good. So if you want to hear Mel on my podcast a little bit down the road, then I would encourage you to look up the IBS Freedom podcast. We're on audio-based apps, Spotify, Apple, whatever. And we also post those episodes on a separate YouTube channel. So like I have my own channel, and then the podcast has its own separate YouTube channel. So if you look up IBS Freedom Podcast, you can find us there too. My co-host is a registered dietitian who also works in like the IBS SIBO kind of world. So we'll little different experience with the two of us. And then for FODMAP Freedom, I link to it in all of my stuff. So if you find one of my YouTube videos, or if you go to Instagram, it's right there. But probably the best link to find all of my stuff in one place is www.fodmap, FODMAP, freedom.com/social. And that's the link that I effectively use like a link tree, even though it's not I built it myself. It's not a link tree.
Yeah, I have that.
But yeah, it's fodmapfreedom.com/social. And that actually has links to YouTube, podcast, Instagram, some little like freebie things that I've done over the years. There was a lecture I did at like a gluten-free health fair that was recorded and put online. And that it has the links for working with me, including FODMAP Freedom.
Awesome. I love it.
And we'll be opening up, I think it's April 28th. So it's going to sneak up on me before I know it. We'll be opening the doors again and welcoming our next group, the baby ducklings, as I call them.
I love it.
They're my little babies.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Because you go into it with this new group with so much love and care and excitement to see what their breakthroughs are.
Yeah. Yeah. And you really never know what you're going to hear. We had, to give you one example real quick, because maybe this is what you were fishing for earlier. We had one student with this group, and she popped onto a Q&A with my nutritionist, not with me. And she was like, I usually don't get to attend the Q&As that much, but I wanted to tell you guys, she was dependent on daily enemas and high doses of oral magnesium. And if I remember correctly, an herbal laxative. And she would take those things, enema, high dose magnesium, herbal laxative, every day for many, many years. Sometimes she needed 2 enemas in one day because her constipation was so severe. And I believe she had bloating and some other stuff going on too. I'm trying to recall off the top of my head. But she came to one of the Q&As and she said, I've been really focusing on the stuff in the first 3 modules like you told me to. And I haven't needed an enema at the time when she came on the Q&A to say this, it had been 13 days and she had not needed an enema, and she was pooping like a champion, and she was diversifying her diet and eating a lot of foods that she had not eaten in a long time.
Beautiful.
And and you can't even comprehend the difference that it would make. Like she was saying, even if she traveled, she would have to bring all of her enema supplies with her when she traveled. Just bonk her stuff, and here she is just pooping like a champion. just really
Amazing.
focusing on the first few weeks worth of stuff that I taught her. So that was probably the coolest one that I've heard this time around. We've had plenty of other people who like their bloating is gone and they're pooping better, but that was a pretty stark contrast to go from daily enemas and high dose magnesium to, hey, I poop like a normal person now.
Oh, that's so good. So good. So amazing. Okay, we're going to wrap it up. I am so excited to share this episode with everybody. I am so grateful that we got to finally hang out and chat on the show and talk poop. Like, that's one of the glories of our job. We get to talk poop on the regular, in all the different ways you could take that meaning. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
For having me.
And of course, everybody connect with the gut microbiome queen, because she has some amazing things to teach you and help you feel fabulous. So
come hang out. I try to make poop fun.
Yeah, totally. Vibrant, colorful, diverse.
Well, I mean, hopefully it's just the one color, but yeah.
Well, not the poop. I'm talking about you.
Yes.
And colorful. And
there we go.
Content is all under the gut microbiome, but it's also diversified. And I look at I've always admired your background and the colors. And
Thanks.
Anyways,
yeah,
go check her out, you guys. All right. Have a good one.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of The Herbalist Path. If you're loving this journey and learning all about the various aspects of herbal medicine, be sure to follow and review the show. It helps more people find their own path with herbal medicine. And if you have a friend or know a mama or another budding herbalist who could use this kind of support, please share this episode with them. And that way, we can keep making herbalism spread like wildflowers. And a gentle reminder, nothing shared on this podcast is intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease. All the information is for educational purposes only. And yeah, we throw in some entertainment too. But what it is not is a substitute for personalized care from a qualified health practitioner. Always do your own research. Listen to your body. And when needed, partner with a trusted professional who honors both your intuition and your health. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep walking down the herbalist path. I love this time of year. It's spring, the sun is shining, and all of our beautiful plant friends are popping up. It's amazing. Unless, of course, you're one of the millions of people who suffer from seasonal allergies. You know, the itchy, watery eyes, the sneezing and wheezing that's straight miserable. Thankfully, there are some amazing herbs that can help you with all of that. Just like the herbs inside of Kick-Ass Allergy from Wish Garden Herbs, one of my absolute favorite herbal companies out there. Kick-Ass Allergy, yes, I said ask without the K at the end. Anyways, this formula has yerba santa, nettles, echinacea for that immune support, and orange peels, all which come together to help dry up those excessive mucosal secretions. Yep, I'm talking about the sniffles and the stuffy nose, the watery eyes, and all that jazz. This blend also acts as a great expectorant and can help ease the swelling and inflammation in those mucosal tissues. It is a top go-to for seasonal allergies. And get this, they combine all those beautiful herbs with glycerin, so it actually tastes pretty darn good. Or should I say, it tastes kick-ass, without the K at the end. Anyways, if allergy season is miserable for you and you want a natural remedy that actually works for those itchy eyes and being all sneezy and wheezy, you have got to check out Wish Garden Herbs Kick-Ass Allergy. And for those of you with the little kiddos, no sweat, they've got a kick-it allergy too. And you pregnant mamas? You don't have to suffer either. They've got a kick-ass allergy formula just for you. So head over to wishgardenherbs.com or check out the link in the show notes and go grab yourself some kick-ass allergy so you can enjoy spring again.